This is Visitor Network TV. With us today is Ben Parker. Ben is a Nantucket young man who has just completed a remarkable journey across the United States, which he's going to tell us about. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Tell us what you did.
So starting on June 20th, but really stretching back before that, I met up with a group of 30 people about my age, most actually a little older. Most had just graduated college, and the 30 of us had been fundraising for months to go on this bike trip across the country.
And it's called what, Bike and Build?
The program is called Bike and Build, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been run, I guess, for...
And who sponsors it?
Well, I mean... In terms of who sponsors it, the money that we raise...
No, but I mean, somebody must run the program. Somebody must...
Right. They have... So they were kind of started in 2002 by a guy named Mark Bush, who I think he went to Yale, and there was something kind of like this at Yale. Mm-hmm. It was exclusive to Yale Habitat, and they did...
Habitat for Humanity?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they did some sort of a... I don't know if it was a cross-country ride, but it was a lengthy bike ride, and he adapted the model there to form Bike and Build, which I think he was probably, it was originally just him running it, and then they now have 3 people in an office in Philadelphia, just kind of coordinating everything, because this program it's all about, I'm trying to remember their mission statement. It's like engaging youth in service in the short term, but it's also about creating people who are dedicated to a lifetime of service. And they do that through these cross-country bike trips. I think it started out with just 2 routes, and they were both sort of northern.
Before you get into that, what does the concept of Bike and Build mean?
So the concept is, first off, it's the ride. You're riding across the country, and you have a planned out route. You're going to be staying at churches along the way, usually bunking on their floors. And before this trip started, you raised a minimum of now $4,500, and it's going to go to partially funding your trip, though overheads are pretty low because of how the program is set up. And then also, a lot of that money is going to be distributed to affordable housing organizations, and often in Habitat's case, affiliates, who have applied through a competitive grant process for grants from the program. Grants
being both money and in-kind service? Yeah.
Well, the 2 are kind of separate. They do grants, which are the grants, like where the money actually goes is decided by the riders in each group. We looked through a series of applications that we were sent from the main office in Philadelphia, and then at the same time, they don't apply. Affiliates don't apply to have us show up and build with them for a day. It's more based on where our route is planned out, and we'll find, okay, so if we're staying in Whitefish, Montana, then there's Habitat of Flathead Valley there, and so they kind of this is the office, and also the route leaders are going to coordinate months in advance with the church in Whitefish, and then also Habitat Flathead.
How many of those stops did you make? How many of the build stops did you make? And they were basically 1 day each?
Yeah, they were always 1 day. We were never in any place more than 2 days, because you're not going to make it across the country.
All right, so you started out when in Portsmouth, and there's an interesting little twist to how you start out and how you end.
Oh, the tradition?
Yes.
Yeah, one of the fabled Bike and Build traditions is for everyone to go to the Atlantic Ocean, which obviously you're in Portsmouth, so it's right there.
Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Yeah. And you dip your back tire in the Atlantic Ocean, and then you ride for 70 days, and when you hit the Pacific, you dip your front tire in the Pacific. So it's kind of a beginning and ending type thing. I assume that's what you're referring to.
That's what I'm referring to. Then you just generally give us the outline of your route.
Okay.
Not every 70 stops.
Yeah. Though I've actually, looking through my photos, I've realized I remember a lot more than I thought I would. Like I remember almost all the town names along the way, which I didn't think that I would, especially because we stayed in some tiny towns. But if you had to envision the route, imagine doing kind of a horseshoe or an upside down omega sign. We went across New Hampshire and Vermont, and then across all of upstate New York. And once we hit Niagara Falls and Buffalo, that was when we basically started to arc around the Great Lakes. And we were first following Erie for a while, and then Michigan, and we stayed in Chicago for a day, and then we kept curling north through Wisconsin, Minnesota, and it was when we hit Duluth, I guess, which is on Superior, that we started going straight west. And with that, it was through North Dakota, Montana, the very tip of Idaho, most of Washington, and then we actually diverted north into Canada to end in Vancouver.
And you put your front tire in the water. What are some of the 3 or 4 of the big highlights of the trip for you?
So I guess ride days. There were a couple in Washington, and especially Glacier National Park in Montana. I kind of knew that going to the Sun Road, which is that's the road that you take to go over Logan Pass in Glacier National. I knew that was going to be one of the best because everyone says it's one of the best, and it was. It's the first national park. It's definitely the first national park in the West that I've been to, and it was
unbelievable,
stunning. Yeah.
How high did you get?
I think that Logan Pass was the highest that we went, and it was something approaching 7,000 feet. I think maybe 6,700. And so that was amazing. The descent down Logan Pass was unbelievable, just like switchback after switchback. And then we also had a stretch in Washington where we were going through the Cascades, and it was basically a mountain pass or two every single day. You can tell I like climbing. That's kind of my thing. I cycle at school, and climbing is kind of my forte there, mostly because I'm pretty light. And so I loved it.
I prefer flat.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry.
We had some other riders who also preferred the flat. But so the Cascades, most of the Cascades were amazing. Sherman Pass was incredible, and then also going through, I think it was Washington Pass, and then descending Washington Pass, we passed a lake called Lake Diablo, I think, and it was like turquoise. Just it was kind of the color caught you off guard, and I think it may have been. It's something like mineral deposits that make it so vibrant, but you don't even expect that a lake like that can exist. But then you ride past.
Yeah, is it glacial, maybe?
Possibly.
Yeah, because glacial lakes tend to be that way.
Well, yeah. I swam in a glacial lake in Glacier on the east side of Glacier called Lake St. Mary. It wasn't like that. It was actually more crystal clear, where you could see rocks that were 6 feet underwater, like they were right at the surface.
Not like Nantucket.
No.
What about the people? A couple of the most memorable people that you met.
We met some really interesting people in. You would expect this because it usually works like this, but in the places that you would think would be kind of least eventful or least interesting, like some of the folks that I met in like eastern Montana, which is it's flat, it's rolling wheat. They were just first. I think part of what made them really interesting to me is that they've lived completely different lives than I have or ever will. They basically their profession is as farmers and growers. And so they have a whole different set of worries that surround their job that I couldn't even imagine.
And the one common thread probably is the weather.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So if you've worked with Habitat, almost all Habitat builds in some way are the same because they utilize their volunteer labor basically the same way. What did I do? I did sodding. I did some interior trim, like laying baseboard and things like that.
In terms of doing something like that again, would you consider it? Would you do it?
Yeah, I had some conversations with group members on the road about that, because and some people, they finish the trip and it's like, I never want to see my bike again, or at least for months. And for me, I was kind of, by the time we got out west, I was running through hypotheticals in my mind, like, would I maybe in a decade or even less than that like to start on the west coast and maybe go east, which is the more traditional way to do it. And I think I probably want to do it self-supported, maybe with a couple other people to, if you're going to be camping, you want to spread the stuff out. And so I think I can envision myself doing something like starting in Northern California, then maybe taking a central route back west to east.
Would you like to do the southern route?
No, I don't think so. I see the reason that I picked the northern route, I picked the most northern route that Bike and Build does, is because I really wanted to avoid the heat, because I played soccer all my life and I know that I don't deal well with heat. So I still didn't get that wish every day. There were some days where I think the heat index on the road were probably well over 100. But I think for almost just for that reason alone, for the heat issue, that I wouldn't want to go too far south.
Yeah, it makes sense. I feel the same way. Well, I think it's a great story, and I hope you can share it with your friends when you get back to school at Dartmouth, and with other people, because I think it's an inspiration for a lot of people, and that's why I wanted you on here to talk about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.